Thank you for joining us here on The Week in Focus right here on Lookup TV. I am Nancy Lima, and today on the program we talk matters. Is it security or is it a witch hunt? Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i dismissed claims that he downskilled Deputy President William Ruto's security. As he appeared before Parliament on Wednesday, he outlaid the different properties that the deputy holds. Now, is that a witch hunt? Or is it time for us to know what exactly our leaders hold? What about the Lifestyle Audit 2021? This is The Week in Focus. To help me discuss this issue further and many other topics that have been making headlines this week. Right next to me is Robi Karani, advocate, political commentator, and on the other end, Stephen Murimi, who is a political analyst and lawyer. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a very eventful week. Yeah,
Not
we've seen
really.
a lot of the Deputy President, and then there was the CS Interior, Fred Matiang'i. So it started a week back after the headlines. Deputy President security has been withdrawn. So why your thoughts at first, Robbie?
No, I don't think it was an event worth talking about, because I have always maintained that we are playing a script, and we have seen this before. We know where it will lead, and basically in what we call the art of war, we are told that offense is the best attack. So as long as Ruto is defending himself, he's not getting his message out there. I say that because if you look at the past 2 months or so, we have been talking about the Deputy President, but not about his agenda for the country. The first one began with his denied flight to Uganda. Then he posted about it. Then they made a fuss about it, again seeking the sympathy vote. And once they did that, a clever, not so clever MP requested that the whole issue be brought down to Parliament and be discussed in Parliament. When the moment came for bringing that issue up in Parliament, the name Aidin came out. And we had stories about him being a terrorist. Then from that story, Deputy President went to local radio stations, said how he had brought in an investor, and he has apologized to him because he was kicked out, and the investor had received a loan of 15 billion from Equity Bank. And then again, we went back to Parliament. The Equity MD was brought in, denied anything about the 15 billion. Then again, they just switched up guards in his area, and him again falling for the same trap. He cried foul over some small security detail being exchanged and being swapped.
But you say cry foul.
Yeah.
He is the Deputy President.
But
and
the idea was that his escort had not been denied. His guard has not been denied. What had been changed was the guards that were were manning the official residence. And there's no difference between them being manned by the GSU or the AP. They all have elite squads for that specific purpose. But now, looking at it from where it came, again, the clever MPs of his requested that Matiang'i be summoned to come and explain. Now, what Matiang'i brought in has led us to us talking about farms in Narok that are quote-unquote grabbed. We are talking about manning properties that are not state properties. And from the whole script, I can promise you that we will have something else in the next 1 or 2 weeks that he will cry for about. Then it will come back in Parliament. Then it'll go back to bite him again.
So my concern really, Murimi, as you come in, is that he says that the Deputy President is crying foul, but there is obviously a very strained relationship between the President and his deputy. And there have been a series of events, as you have said, as you've mentioned. And so looks like they're coming for the Deputy President. There's this and then there's that. There could be something else next week that we'll be looking at. And it is in bad taste, bad publicity, if you may.
Nalima, all these are political machinations, that are leading us to nowhere. That is what I would start by saying. Because what I believe myself is that the maiden name of any politician is interest, pure interest. So if the government's interests are not with William Ruto, you will see so many things, right? If security being downgraded is one thing, right? And so many other things will come. And we should not dwell on this issue so much, because the deputy president already has his security. I also agree with my panelist here. I don't see the issue with the security being downgraded from GSC to now APs. He still has his presidential escort, you know. So I think he's trying to create a scenario whereby he's perhaps trying to attract some sympathy votes.
But you know, it's not really about the security, but what it symbolizes. Because it would be deemed as the government trying to frustrate the deputy.
You know, Nalima, the revelations were caught me by surprise. I came to learn that the deputy president and his property, these guys are guarded by about 257 soldiers. Whereas in my village, from where I come from, even getting 10 askaris is an issue, right? And that is why I'm referring to these issues as political machinations, yeah? And from where I sit, the main question that we should be asking here should be, do these people really require all these policemen around them? Do they really require these people around them? Yes? If the person is guarded at a personal capacity, then why do we have to go on and guard their businesses and their entities, including their farms? Some of which I'm told that there is a lot of chicken therein. I don't know, I've never been there, so I cannot confirm these details. But for me, I tend to believe that these are issues that may be thrown to Kenyans to just maybe divert their attentions from the issues, as you said. We should move from an area whereby now we stop discussing these kinds of shenanigans. Let us discuss issue-based politics. At the end of the day, the security of the deputy president is intact. I think it is intact.
Okay, and so we know that the deputy president has the bottom-up economic model, and this is, empowering the people who are at the bottom so that they can grow.
When was the last time he talked about it?
Okay, no.
That's the point.
Let me give the question first. So that's the economic model that he rides with, that the slogan is hoping will give him success as he heads for presidency come next year. And right now, the definition of hustler, now with this expose of how much property he holds, then he seems to be defending himself, saying that you can have money but still be a hustler.
How?
So does this definition now change now that his fellow hustlers now know that, oh, he actually has money?
Okay, I watched someone a politician trying to defend him yesterday and saying, we don't want a president who doesn't have his own money. All of us want a president who has something in his pocket to give us. And it made me laugh, because all along, what we have always insisted is get your message out and speak to the people about what you want to do for them. But if you try to tell these Tanga people that, look, the road you are going is not well, they don't listen to you. And they end up going to the extent of ruining their whole agenda, because they are responding to non-starters and they are creating stories where there are no stories. The last time we talked about bottom-up economics was when Tuju called it mataconomics. And Mudavadi said he wants anataka kutumeza sisi wote. That's why he's saying, but that's the last time you heard of bottom-up economics. I personally do not agree with the theory, because it's not a model that is working. It's just a principle and an issue that we can adapt in our economy, and which we have already implemented. When you talk about empowering Mama Mboga, is what we have been doing with Youth Enterprise Fund, Youth Fund, Women Fund. You can talk to us about how you want to reform those funds to be at least more accountable or to reach more people, but you can't sell us something that we think already has been there. It's not like something that hasn't been there. It's just that we have variations of how we interpret different kinds of economy. Our economy, as it is, as it said, we rely on agriculture, manufacturing, and the service sector. Those are the three things that contribute to our economy going up. So if your agenda is making agriculture come up, you could notice that the president, our president Uhuru Kenyatta, was really categorical on what he wants to achieve on that big four agenda thing, and his idea on growing manufacture sector was its contribution to our GDP. Because eventually, when you talk about empowering Mama Mboga has nothing to do with the manufacturing sector as it is. If you use the same model of giving Mama Mboga money to build herself, we are not building our manufacturing sector. We are not building our service sector, where we have the highest rate of unemployment, because people, the skills we have amassed on our people on the service sector are not being utilized or are being underutilized in our sector as it is. You go and teach a child to do a course in neuronautics, engineering, and then she comes back and becomes a social media influencer. You would have as well taken her for a course of social media and digital content creation.
Maybe I can weigh in on that issue, because I will be the devil's advocate for once. Let me be the devil's. Let me take the position of the devil's advocate for once. Number one, I would want to laud the DP, right, for trying to discuss a model. Actually, no other presidential candidate, including Raila Odinga himself, has come out and discussed any model so far. No, but Mudavadi is not. He's only said that he's going to revive. He's only said that he's going to revive the economy. He's only said. No, I've just said that he has come up and tried to explain a model, which I also have issues with, because for me, any economic model must be based on the multiplier factor, right? How do we grow the economy? We only grow the economy through ensuring that where we invest the money, those monies can benefit others. And that is why I have a problem, an issue with the bottom-up approach, as it has been enumerated by the DP. But that said and done, I would also want to disagree with my fellow panelists here that empowering the Mama Mbogas in the village does not grow the economy. Where did you get these facts from? Right?
I have not, it doesn't grow the economy. I have said it does not contribute to our manufacturing sector and our service sector. If you want to grow an economy, you don't grow the economy.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of in Kenol, in Sagana. We had a young man, right, who has been producing some USB cables. A very young man, right, who has come out from, yes, that's Kirinyaga, that's in Sagana. Sagana is in Kirinyaga, yes. And if we argue that giving the grassroots people some money cannot then grow the economy, or cannot grow the manufacturing, then we are lying. Because that guy has already started, and if you listen to his stories, he will tell you that he started with around 150,000. Right? So what are we saying when we argue that giving them the grassroots people money? What are we saying when we come up with these allegations that it can't grow the economy? No, it's a lie. These monies can grow the economy, and as per se the manufacturing industry and the cottage industry. Because remember, we have women at the grassroots level who deal with dressmaking, right? Who deal with issues like issues that contribute to manufacturing. And issues like they come up with some very good models, some of which maybe are sold here at Masai Market. If you go to Masai Market, you will see some of these issues. That is an aspect of manufacturing in itself, though at a lower level, it is an aspect of manufacturing. So when we come up with some of these theories, we should also be able to back them up and argue and agree that at the end of the day, what we need, and that is why maybe I agree with him, is to reform some of these sectors, some of these enterprises that exist. Women Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund, and the Weather Fund. We need to reform these facilities so that maybe they can befit what our people want. In terms of maybe in terms of manufacturing, if maybe there's an idea of manufacturing, so that maybe these things can come up and back these ideas. But we can't argue that...
I will tell you one thing, that from this whole debate, we have not seen an actual program or an action being proposed on how we can collect this and how that can contribute to our growth per se. Because I will tell you, in 2017, when we were voting in the Jubilee government, it had promised to create for us what they call the Biashara Bank. The Biashara Bank was supposed to come from the Biashara Fund, which was a consolidated fund of all these funds that exist being merged into one and created into a bank that you can go in and get or any of these funds as services of the Biashara Bank. That immediately fell when we were creating the Biashara Fund, and rather than talk to us about what happened and what is wrong with the Biashara Fund idea and how you want to create it, you want to talk to us about bottom-up that doesn't really address what this issue, because once we get to the nitty-gritties of the problem, is you're creating a narrative for the people that is so ambiguous and so vague that even if you don't achieve anything, you can manufacture your own data on what you agree and how you helped Mama Mboga with. I have seen them. The candidates are going around here giving people umbrellas, for the traders umbrellas, and saying that's how bottom-up economics works.
Okay, so and one thing that has come out definitely when Matiang'i was in Parliament after he was summoned on Wednesday is lifestyle audit. We know that there's a bill in Parliament, the Lifestyle Audit 2021, that seeks to remove the restrictions for us as the public to know what public servants own. So this is the second attempt. Do you think we're going to realize that?
I don't believe we're going to realize that, because the number one rule of being wealthy and remaining wealthy is tax avoidance, not rather than tax evasion, because tax evasion is illegal, but tax avoidance is legal. So how you avoid tax when you're wealthy is by creating stooges and ensuring that not all property can be traced back to you. So even if you were to do a lifestyle audit on a majority of politicians, they would get a green light, but that's not what they actually hold. Those people even have properties that are in the names of their security guard, somebody they are not related to, when they're getting their own contracts. When we look at our root of all our corruption, most of the contracts, if you go to examine it, it's very hard to pin it to a certain politician, in as much as it is widely accepted that this deal involved so and so. You will look for any paper evidence and you will not get. So yes, we can pass the lifestyle audit bill and make it an act and try to enforce it on public officers. It might get the smaller fish, because our police, our magistrate normally get caught in those kind of stuff. But for our politicians and anyone who's above a certain wealth level, you will do an audit on Jimmy Wanjigi and he will come out quickly clean and tell you that he started his business as a garbage collector and his father was an MP, but that's another story.
Okay.
Maybe I can start from here. You know, they always say that a long journey will always begin with one step. And I would want to disagree with my brother here that we can't realize the intentions that have been meant by the bill, by the said bill. For me, I believe nothing is impossible under the sun. If you find the strength within and believe, nothing is impossible. And if we can find a system through which there is goodwill, whereby we have a government and that government gives goodwill, provides a platform for goodwill, nothing cannot be realized. Nothing cannot be realized. You'll be surprised. You say that you cannot link some of these properties to some of our politicians. But then the question I would ask is, who protects these politicians? Right? If it is not the government. So if we can come up with a model and if we can come up with a government which is very clear on its mandates to fight corruption and is quite dedicated to serving Kenyans, because service here is the key word, then we can realize some of these elements, like Wealth Declaration as enumerated for in Chapter 6 of our Constitution. If we can be able to marry the same with the principles and values of governance as enumerated for in Article 10 of our Constitution, then it will be very easy to realize some of these things. And remember that if the government wants to, and I can maybe go back to the issue, the William Ruto issue, it is the same government that was protecting William Ruto's property that is now telling us how much William Ruto owns. So what is impossible? What is quite impossible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In India, we had a company, or rather an entity called Kingfisher. I'm sure you've heard of the wine back here in Kenya. And the CEO was known to be the president of good times. So he would throw lavish parties. And he was a very wealthy person. He went even into airlines. But at his peak, he failed to pay over 1,000 employees for almost 3 months. And when they demanded, and they started having demonstrations all over, he had his 60th birthday and called the likes of Beyonce to come perform at his birthday, while no one has been paid. When they decided to go and look at his paperwork, they could not trace anything to him. At the end, once they decided to now attack the company as it is, he fled to the UK. He's still hiding in the UK as of now, and we are still enjoying his drinks around here. But the idea being that India had very stringent laws on governing financial misappropriation and dealing with labor laws. But even then, even with such something you can see with your eyes, hosting such a party would have cost, the amount he used to host that party would have paid his employees for the next 3 months, but it could not tie him to it. What I'm saying is it's not impossible, but if your idea is to get that big fish, before you're making these laws, that big fish has employed people like me, and we have already shown him where to put his money, so you won't find him.
It's going to be an uphill task. And I remember in the 2013 presidential elections, and then there was the debate, and President Uhuru Kenyatta was put on the spot, I think by Joe Ageo, of the wealth that they own so much property at the coastal region, and he managed to, come out clean and just say that there's the property, but it's not his property as Uhuru Kenyatta, but it is in the Kenyatta family. So as you say, could it be much harder to actually say this is how much Uhuru owns, this is how much Deputy President owns, this is how much former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, exactly how much they own?
That one is a tall order. I can tell you that, because much of what we do in our profession is to guide people with such wealth on how to secure the same. Kiumana, you won't be that bad.
Yes.
But I would want maybe to paint a picture of what happened in Singapore. If you read closely, when Singapore was rising, you realize that one of the main issues that really affected Singapore was state capture by the then founding father. I think it's Keon something. I don't remember his name quite clearly. But there was an aspect of state capture whereby a certain province in Singapore was said to be owned by was he a king or the said leader? I mean, maybe refer to him as a leader. But when the reforms started, when they started these reforms, they could not spare any person, right? So, and the issue there was, if we find you with something and you cannot explain how you got your wealth, you cannot give a very clear explanation. It doesn't matter whether you are a politician, whether you are a farmer. If you can't explain how you got your wealth, then the same is repossessed by the government. There was a legal framework on how they achieved that. Back to our country.
So maybe that's something we need to borrow.
We can borrow that. What is I don't see what.
But it would be hard to. Okay, maybe we can get it started. Can we have it done so we can know what what our MP owns by the time we vote next year?
There's one thing that we always forget, that politics is about perception. In as much as you would want to arrest a specific person for having wealth, if he can tune the perception of the people to believe that you are going after them, then your process is a nullity. Ndirito Gachagua says, Rigathi Gachagua says he did a deal of 260 billion and he can explain to the dot how it went, and the government is only going after him because he's a tanga-tanga. You go to his area, you will not convince a single person that this person needs to go to court and defend himself in court. Rather than defend himself in court, he defends himself to the court of public opinion. And by doing that, that's why I'm saying, by doing that, if the idea of having the lifestyle audit bill is not at the public service, it's at the politicians, you will not go anywhere.
Okay, and at this point we take a very short break here on the Week in Focus, but there's so much more lined up on the other side. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Lookup TV. The hashtag is Week in Focus. Nancy and Lima here, and we are looking at the week that was, the withdrawal or rather rearrangement of security officers of the Deputy President. We'll also be looking at IEBC commissioners that have been appointed and someone moved to court to stop the same. And of course, a look at Afghanistan, as this was the last week of evacuation. That and so much more. With me on set is Robi Karani right next to me, advocate, political commentator, and Stephen Murimi on the other end, lawyer, political analyst. Welcome once more, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's switch gears and talk about IEBC. The commissioners they were nominated by the president, then they underwent vetting in parliament, and the president has appointed them. So they'll be sworn in. But someone has moved to court to stop the same, talking about the 2/3 gender rule not being implemented. What do you make of it?
Okay, to begin with, I would say that the appointment of commissioners has been long overdue. And we've been waiting for it for a while. In fact, it was one of the grounds that was being used in this BBI case about the quorum of the IEBC commissioners. So we needed it fully done as soon as possible. Then we had the regular commission that says that you cannot change an electoral body 1 year to elections. So we are trying to maintain that sanctity before our coming elections. But be that as it may, we are also in a place where we are kind of stuck on what exactly to do, because if we stand with the Court of Appeals ruling, then it would invalidate anything that the IEBC has done up to the time that these commissioners were appointed.
Mm-hmm. So meaning even the by-elections that we've heard?
No, so if it does that, no, I'm talking about administrative duties. So anything that has involved a decision. When they make a decision to do mass voter registration, it could be challenged in court because of the same ruling. When they did the timelines and the schedule for when the nomination would be, when the date of election would be, the same could be questioned in the manner in which the Court of Appeal brought out the quorum issue. But that was on one side. Now the person seeking to invalidate or go back on the IEBC issue, I would say is a stooge of what happened to us in 2012. Because in 2012 we had similar cases challenging the then IEC. And from what came about was the electoral body was unable to organize a general election in December of 2012. And we were forced to have an election in March of 2013. So I do not want to comment on the merits or the demerits of the case as it stands, but what I can say is if we take the trajectory that we are taking from now on, it might be a bit difficult or rather impossible to have the election on August 9th, 2022. And going by what the courts have been ruling of late, there could be a lot of quote-unquote confusion and hula baloo about it, that we could end up having another case, another court process of going to the Supreme Court over this election date issue.
Okay. Yes, Steve, now the IEBC it's fully constituted. Yeah.
Actually, it's a good thing, and maybe I want to join my brother here in saying that it was long overdue. It was indeed long overdue. But the question of how they conducted themselves, it is provided for in the Constitution. The Constitution is the mother document that we should rely on when we are seeking some of these issues, because I think the main disparity is between the Act, the IEBC Act, and the Katiba, because the Katiba says 3, but now again the Act says 5. And going by that, it is very clear an Act cannot overrule a Constitution. The Constitution is final in that case. But again, I would never. I also don't want to discuss the merits of that case, the ongoing case that has been filed in court. However, it is also important to note that it is important that we have the IEBC in place and fully constituted as it is right now, because we have less than 1 year going to the next general election, and we wouldn't. And I believe that this is the opinion of so many Kenyans, that we wouldn't entertain a situation whereby we are postponing an elections on a mere technicality of gender. However, how important it is important that we adhere to the constitutional requirement of the two-thirds gender rule. But maybe let's wait and see what the courts will pronounce themselves when they get there. However, on the other issue maybe that I've had, on the issue of the quota, I tend to believe that issue was not challenged by anyone in court. And if it was not challenged by anyone in court, then we cannot say whether it was right, whether it was wrong, because the courts, if someone moved to court to challenge the issue of the quota, then the courts should have pronounced themselves on the same issue. Okay,
and as we are heading towards the 2022 general elections, remember 2017, so IEBC suffer a huge blow. Rosalyn Akombe and the other commissioners, and she actually said her life was in danger. At that time she exiled and went abroad. So we are moving to elections, and there are still these wounds in IEBC. So do you think history will not repeat itself?
Okay, number one, and I question this from time immemorial, that the moment we had the elections nullified in 2017, the Supreme Court put the IEBC to task on a number of issues on the manner in which the election was conducted. Now, rather than speak about, I've had ODM calling for removal of Chebukati and such stupid statements. I would call them stupid and reckless. This is not the time to be talking about such. But rather than to look at how the quorum of the IEBC is and who is leading the IEBC, we should be looking at these issues that made the court nullify the presidential election. Has IEBC complied with the same? Is IEBC prepared to provide these services without making the same mistakes it made last time? And my answer to that question is no. Because one of the problems that we had in 2017 was the fact that they had this KIMS kit that you were supposed to first record your results on a piece of paper that would have been signed. That's the form 34A that we
34B. Now there's a lot of that lingo.
Yeah, so you have 34A that they were signing that had the results from the polling station. Now the presiding officer at the polling station would then have to take a photo of that form so that they can upload it to the system. Now, number one, that thing had no two trials about it. If you post a picture, it goes. If you didn't take the picture well, it goes. If if you started by trying to take a selfie, others even sent selfies. If you tried by trying to check if the camera is doing, that's what goes. You can't resend it. And now IEBC was forced in a situation where they come to court and they try to show us that we have the physical 34As, so you can disregard whatever was sent to the system. And they were told, no, if you put your own procedures and systems on how this election should be done, you can't come back and tell us that we did it out of precaution. But it's not a must that we do them. That we had some papers that had security features and others did not have, but since it's not a constitutional requirement, it does not matter. No. Is that if you put uniform procedures by your own admission, by your own regulation, then you have to follow them to the latter. As it stands right now, no one is talking about those things. No one is addressing these issues that will again come back in the election and then have us going back to the same cycle.
Looking at this same scenario.
So I tend to believe that we are being misdirected, because I don't even believe that if the commissioners appointed would not get to the agenda quorum, that was something that could have been brought up in Parliament by anyone. That was something that the AG would have advised against or for from the beginning. Now, when we come back to come and fight in court about the quorum of the IEBC and the current membership and the gender representation in that, we are being driven away from the main point, and that is the procedures in the election that is coming and what we might face in the coming elections.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mariwe.
The question of the IEBC and them being ready for the 2017 general elections again remains to be a little bit mystical in a way, because as my fellow panelist has alluded here, we've not seen much, we've not had much, neither have we read much. But looking at your report, there's a certain report that it is just the other day. If you look at that report keenly, you come to realize that they have appreciated and they have taken into cognizance some of the things some of the issues that were raised by the Supreme Court in 2017. And one of the main issues was the process of an electioneering process. How do we start? From how we start to how we end, right? And the main issue that maybe I've seen they've really tried to fix is on the question of the devices that they are using, because they were saying that, okay, we have this KIMS kit and we want some technical assistance to be able to reconfigure them and set them and make them ready for the elections come next year. So they've tried. I wouldn't say they've not tried, because they're making steps there. They've taken some general steps towards realizing that the 2017 general election becomes successful. However, I have an issue. The 2022 general election becomes successful. However, I have an issue when it comes to how our political parties and how our leaders treat IEBC. You know, when you hear the likes of the ODM coming in and saying, no, we cannot go to the 2022 general election with Chebukati, then that raises a lot of eyebrows, yeah? Because they are not telling us, one of the things that the ODM is not telling us, it is not telling us what has Chebukati not done. What they are saying is that, you see, Chebukati is a Ruto's person and we cannot go to the elections with him. You know, Chebukati has done. And remember that Chebukati has guided IEBC from 2016 when he came in as a chairman. So he has learned a lot, right? It is only fair if we allow Chebukati to do to take the commission through the 2022 general elections, and maybe let us see if he undoes the mistakes he made in 2017, because that again is very important. If we bring in a new person before the new person learns how the system works and maybe learns how to control this or put this into place, we might lose it again in the process of trying to maybe see how we can conduct a free, fair, and a credible general election. So those for me would be my views in terms of the IEBC and the whole fiasco of governance and how they move on to 2022.
And in 2017, we cannot forget one of the commissioners, Musando, who died during that voting period.
He was a director, actually,
yes,
not a commissioner.
Director. And not much has been done about it till now. He was part of that election process, and not much has been done. So if we're not making these things right before then, are we looking at similar scenarios?
Any person who goes into a battle without checking the history and the terrain that they are in is bound to fail. And as it stands, what ODM is doing is readying its wings to take off for the 2022 elections. These people are the same people who brought us Isaac Hassan must go and tear gas Monday until we had Chebukati. So that's why I find it reckless that they can start talking about changing the chairman at this specific point. I have taken cognizance of what Musalia Mudavadi has been talking about and defending the IEBC in everything that they are doing, that we can't have a game where anytime you go to play, your concern is the referee and not your opponent. That's what we are having at the moment. I would not want to stand here and wish the IEBC any fault in the coming elections. By all means, I am a candidate in that election, so I need them to be straightforward and I need them to be as credible as they can so that they can cement my win when
they can be as independent
yes,
as possible.
Yes, I would really need that. But largely, in talking about it from what our elections have become in recent times, is that we look towards those technicalities in a much more sinister manner. So Msando's death was very unfortunate. I happened to join protesters in Nairobi on that specific issue. In as much as I was supporting the president on the specific issue of Msando, I was looking for justice. But we got to a point where the family and the people taking care of it decided that they wanted to handle the matters within a certain limit and secrecy and confidentiality among themselves. So we were kind of gagged on exactly how much you can indulge in this activity, because I do believe there's an investigation was conducted, inquiry was set up, and the report was brought back to the president and to the family. We have not had much from them, save for the fact that his widow, his wife, was appointed by the president to a state office. But what I would want to take from all of it is that we have to defend the credibility and the impartiality of our institutions and their independence from the executive as a whole. Okay. We are in a good, I would say, in a rather fortunate situation that the current head of the executive is not vying. So we can at least obscure his interest in as far as the election is concerned. But we are in a position where if we do not stand to defend our institutions and their independence from manipulation and all political influence, then we risk the unfortunate circumstance of having our elections nullified and going back through this process, through this expensive process all over again.
Yeah, and Kenya has one of the most expensive elections.
No, but as I said here the last time I was here, I said that I do not have an issue with electioneering. In fact, if you were to have elections every year, I would be very happy about it, because the people get to enjoy certain privileges and some kind of trade development that they do not enjoy all this other time. The only problem comes with once that vote has been cast. During this campaign period, we are the happiest people on earth.
And there's a lot of money.
There's a lot of money. There's work for everyone. Everyone will find work. The problem is if we are able to defend our institution such that I can become number 3 and confidently stand and say IBC did a good job, and those results reflect what was actually on the ground. If we can be able to do that, then we can move on. Our problem has always been that the moment we start drawing aspersions on the IEBC, then we render the whole process fraudulent. Then we have existing fears of violence and chaos erupting here and there, and that's when now everything cuts off. So our election have always been, we close our eyes and we just watch.
You see, Robin has said a lot. Robin has said a lot. I don't even know where to come in. But maybe I can say something about Msando's unfortunate death. You know, the question of electoral justice in this country still remains to be a very huge and big debacle that we need to unravel going forward. Remember that people claim, some quarters claim that Msando was killed to pave way for some malpractices that were to take place.
And his finger was allegedly used even after his death. You know,
these are some of
those are allegations.
Allegations, as I said, allegedly.
These are allegations. But how true they are, we don't know. But kama vile Mswahili husema lisomaro lipo, and kama halipo maybe limahali laja. You know, these allegations cannot remain to be mere allegations by the mere fact because the people responsible tell us that they were allegations. And everything that happened during that time revolved around electoral justice. And it was unfortunate. Basically, it was unfortunate. We don't have to lose a person on the basis of who becomes the president or who becomes an MP. It is unfortunate. We shouldn't go there as a people, right? We should be more tolerant. We should be more accommodating to the views of other people as a people. And if maybe I support my brother Kidogo here and say that all we want as a country, and I've said that before, maybe when I was here, is that we want an IEBC that can deliver free, credible, and verifiable elections. Free, fair, credible, and verifiable elections. If they can do that, then I can assure you, Nalima, that we will have the best country. We will have the most peaceful country in the world. Why? Because if I lose, if I am a candidate in the forthcoming general election and I lose that elections in a free, fair, and a credible manner, then I will be content that my people do not, perhaps maybe are not quite contented with my policies and my manifesto. Yeah, but if we lose if I lose an elections, knowing very well that this was not the true will of the people, then but you can't argue that Baba allegedly, these are allegations. And Baba, in my own opinion, Baba has always lost elections in a free and fair manner. People have rejected Baba in so many times.
Baba
has lost the elections. We cannot say that Baba has not lost elections. Baba has lost elections.
He has 44% of Kenya's vote consistently since 2007. That's a fact.
44% cannot make him the president.
I think we can discuss Baba next time. But as we close, just weigh in on the situation in Afghanistan. 31st of August, that was the last day of evacuation. And, you know, Taliban have taken over different countries. Uganda have taken in some refugees. Rwanda have taken in a couple of students in Somaliland. And we have countries like South Africa that said we're not going to have refugees. But just to weigh in on the issue and just a little bit as a close.
In beginning with the issue, I like to, first of all, express my condolences to a number of people that have already lost their loved ones in that transition from the Afghanistan government to to the Taliban state. We've had some affecting Kenya nationals. I think we've seen 2 or 3 people from the expatriate community talking about how their people have suffered under the said movement. But in as much as I do sympathize with them, on this one I tend to hold the same view as Biden, that the Americans were in a fight over nothing. Because there's a difference between people who fight for a cause and people who fight for money. The Taliban, as it were, had an army of less than 10 times the army of Afghan government, but they surrendered without any resistance. And that shows you the deep intuition towards the governing of Afghanistan as it is. And if that is what will take for the Taliban and the ISIS to not attack US offices within Nairobi and Tanzania, then by all means take it. As we are in Kenya, we already have the biggest refugee camp, so you can try to get others to help us on this.
Yes, Murimi, very briefly.
The Afghan issue. For me, I will just dwell on the question of human rights and the massive violation of human rights that is happening. And though maybe the US have come out clear and say that they were in a war for nothing, I think that it is not good for the international community to just watch it as it slides down. Right now, the gains that were made, the human rights gains that were made, rights on children, rights on women, all these rights are, we are just backdropping on them, and it is not a good thing. It is not something that we can celebrate. Though maybe the world has agreed that we need to let the Talibans be and govern their own states according to their own Sharia and what they believe, I believe that there needs to be some semblance of balance. We need to strike a balance. The world needs to strike a balance and come in and say, okay, you guys, do whatever you want as long as you can respect the human rights in Afghanistan. If that can be respected, then we can allow them to mess their country or build their country.
You know, a fun fact, the president of Afghanistan wrote a book on how to fix failed states. And then now he's run away and left.
Unfortunately, he wrote the book and fled. But again, just to conclude, one of the reasons why the Taliban again have rose can be closely attributed to the cases of corruption and plunder of public resources. Because you realize that majority of the residents, majority of the citizens in Afghanistan supported the Taliban state to take over power from the government. Why? Because I thought that the government has been pradaling their resources in a very huge way. So even as we hold these discussions and what, it should serve as a warning, as a very stringent warning to the people who are corrupt and to the people who plunder public resources, that their time might be limited.
Could be coming. Okay, and thank you so much, Stephen Murimi, lawyer, political analyst, and Robi Karani, advocate, political analyst. And this has been the Week in Focus. We have been looking at key highlights, events that have been making headlines throughout the week, right from the Deputy President's rearrangement of security to the IEBC, are they ready for the 2022 general elections? And finally, the situation in Afghanistan after the evacuation deadline is up. I am Nancy Nalima. Thank you so much for watching.